Ladies and gentlemen out there, fellow American citizens, and foreign nationals, of course, I have to my right
Big Banks,
and I am Stroobs, talking about the latest issue in the 2020 race. The Democratic side, the town halls were held on CNN the other day, and candidates had a lot to say. So let's get right to it.
Hello, hello, hello. What a wonderful word. Hello, hello.
As we see, of course, Big Banks, as you've seen over the course, and we've both looked at the Democratic contenders over the course of the last few months, other than the fact that the number is just hard to track now. It's in the probably 24 or 36 by now. Who knows who is who? Some folks who believe that they are worthy of contention, even though they're only the mayors of small little towns of 100,000 or 75,000, like Buttigieg of South Bend, Indiana. Buttigieg, what a name. And nevertheless, we still see this leftward push. We saw it a couple weeks ago in the slavery reparations topic. We saw, what else did we see? It's gotten pretty wild.
I mean, they can
keep pushing socialism, Green New Deal, all of these other items. It's just gotten really hard to track just how far left and how fringe the new wave of the Democrats, the progressive left of the Democratic Party has gone. It's tough to track, but nevertheless, the newest issue that just came about on CNN's town halls the other night was the issue of presently incarcerated or currently incarcerated individuals and their right to vote. Bernie Sanders kind of let the cat out of the bag, so to speak, with what he had to say during his hour-long or so session during the town hall here. Here's Senator Sanders, good old Uncle Bern, feeling the burn on this one.
Senator Sanders, you have said that you believe that people with felony records should be allowed to vote while in prison. Does this mean that you would support enfranchising people like the Boston Marathon bomber, a convicted terrorist and murderer? Do you think that those convicted of sexual assault should have the opportunity to vote for politicians who could have a direct impact on women's rights?
Okay, thank you for the question, and let me just say this. What our campaign is about and what I believe is creating a vibrant democracy. Today, as you may know, we have one of the lowest voter turnouts of any major country on earth. I want to see us have one of the highest voter turnout. We live in a moment where cowardly Republican governors are trying to suppress the vote, as it happens in my own state of Vermont from the very first days of our state's history. What our Constitution says is that everybody can vote. That is true. So people in jail can vote. Now, here is my view. If somebody commits a serious crime, sexual assault, murder, they're going to be punished. They may be in jail for 10 years, 20 years, 50 years, their whole lives. That's what happens when you commit a serious crime. But I think the right to vote is inherent to our democracy. Yes, even for terrible people.
Yeah, so certainly a little out there. I would say, would you argue as well, Big Banks? A little beyond the pale.
He's far out there. You know, when you go to prison, you lose rights, and one of them is the right to vote. I mean, you can't have it both ways. You can't be punished and given,
you can't deprive someone else of their rights or take their life, or you do. That's what penance is for. The idea of penance. That's what the idea of actually paying your debt to society means. You're removed from certain elements and certain aspects of civil society when you've committed a heinous crime and you've been convicted. Not, of course, when you're still awaiting trial or when you haven't necessarily been convicted. You still retain those rights. When you're away, though.
But we're not finished yet. You still got Kamala Harris.
Kamala Harris. I would probably rate this as a blunder, an unforced error on her part. Here's what she had to say during her portion of the same town hall.
I have been long an advocate of making sure that the formerly incarcerated are not denied a right to vote.
But people who are convicted in prison, like the Boston Marathon bomber, on death row, people who are convicted of sexual assault, they should be able to vote?
I think we should have that conversation.
Not a good answer, not really a wise answer, a little bit of a flub there, a little wishy-washy, right? A little clumsy, inarticulate. I think we need to have that conversation. I think that's, come on. if you don't believe it, if you actually don't believe in incarcerated felons
Voting.
serving time in state pens, voting in federal elections, then you know what, come out and
Say it.
and own it. You
Say
know,
it.
but this whole idea of trying to play the middle, trying to do this tightrope, and not being really, not having convictions and not really standing for anything. How far is that going to get you in the Democratic race, Big Banks?
Well, let's be truthful. You know, right now California is a blue state. It's going to be forever blue for right now. And those votes are not going to really help the national election when it comes to
Electoral College, when it comes to,
Yeah.
you're right, that's probably.
But the problem with the situation is local elections. Say if you have a tight race and those inmates vote, it can push a 200 count race to 10,000 on one side just because you have 10,000 offenders who claim to be Democrats. So it could be problematic on a local or state election.
Correct. So the Prison Policy Initiative would, their numbers, they've run estimates on this, about 183,000 murders and 164,000 convicted rapists nationwide would have their voting rights, their ability to vote from their prison cell restored should the Bernie Sanders newfangled proposal take hold and go into fruition. So, don't know. Not great stuff there from this current core of progressive Dems. I don't think middle America is going to buy into this. I don't think your average suburbanite or Iowa, Wisconsin, Ohioan voter, I don't think they're going to really buy into this whole
And
idea.
those are the states that really need it.
Those are the states that count.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't really see it going anywhere either. I mean, you really have to push a campaign worldwide.
Those are the 2016 toss-ups.
Yeah.
I don't know. It seems like these Dems are just trying to appeal to this radical wing, the social media savvy folks who are on the far fringes. You know, you're undecided. Your 2012 Obama voter, but who was also a 2016 Trump voter, who's living in Oshkosh, Wisconsin. He or she is presumably not that social media savvy. They're not out there spewing their opinions off on social media. They are probably repulsed by this idea. They are probably absolutely just, it's abhorrent from their perspective.
I mean, you can talk with some of them, you know, who voted for, you know, Obama in 2008 and 2012.
And then went Trump in 2016.
And then, you know, who's still on the fence. And it's like, you know, y'all really losing me.
These are votes up for grabs.
Yeah.
And the further left you push, you're going to compromise those votes. You're going to take those votes from being toss-ups, really, to right over into the Trump camp. So keep doing that at your own peril, of course.
Well, not even the Trump camp. I mean, just they may not vote at all because they may just like, I'll just stay out of it.
Right. If Bernie is your Democratic nominee, right, I think a lot of people are going to say, you know what, that's
I'll sit
those
this one out.
Those are two radicals who are a little too radical for my choosing, for my liking. So we'll continue to follow that. One other item here, one other kind of point to make, just the sanctity and the nature and how we hold elections in this country, the importance of voting. For the longest time, our turnout was hovering around the 50 to 58% mark nationally, a little higher, of course, during presidential years, but substantially below during off-cycle, off-presidential election years, midterms, of course. Things that these current Democratic nominees are advocating and are pushing for, the abolishment of the Electoral College, come on, non-citizens, possibly green card holders voting in state elections, maybe not for president, but
some are actually voting and actually hold office who are non-citizens in certain jurisdictions around the country.
School board and local offices, of course.
So it's not
absolutely.
a far-fetched situation. So
It isn't. Other states, of course, have been pushing for the restoration of voting rights for people who have served their time. Of course, Florida just recently, I believe, and California now does allow ex-felons to vote. Folks who are sitting in city and county jails rather than state penitentiaries, they do also have the right to cast a vote, either absentee or I don't know if they're shepherded to the polls on election day by the.
And I understand that too as well. I mean, think about it. If you have not been convicted of any crime yet, but you're sitting in jail waiting for your trial,
of course, 100%.
You should keep your right to vote. But once you've been convicted,
you lose
that right,
of course, at least for that time, and then let's have the conversation about that period of time when you are released or your record is scrubbed, of course. So we'll keep following that for you, folks. Thanks for joining us again. We appreciate the likes, the subscribes, the comments. Let us know what you want to hear on the show. Let us know the direction you want to take the show. We talk a lot about race relations. We talk a lot about the 2016 and 2020 elections. But let us know what you want to hear from us, and we will happily oblige. So for Mr.
Big Banks,
I am Stroobs. We will catch you all next time. Peace.
Peace.